Hey, you're both here. All right, right on. Good.
How are you? Thanks, Justin.
Thank you for being part of it. I really appreciate it.
Nice to meet you. I'm Sarah.
Hi, Sarah. It's Patrick and Sarah. Thank you guys.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Really appreciate it.
Of
Yeah.
course.
Mm.
Are
Sorry.
you're out of Chicago?
No, I'm in St. Louis.
Oh, St.
Oh,
Louis. Cool.
nice.
Yeah, yeah, cool. And you guys
Cool.
are New York, so that's
Yep.
awesome. Thank you so much. Tell me, you were at Nuck's show. How was that?
It was fantastic. Yeah, and I was so happy to meet her too. Patrick introduced me because Patrick and Maddie already knew each other. To meet her and the show incredible. And so were the owners.
The openers were there and
Yeah.
Laura and
Yoda, yeah.
it somebody was a little
I was
talking
starstruck.
to Maddie. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Well, let's get started. You guys, do you have any upcoming albums or shows you want to promote?
No, we're just fresh off a little tour around the Northeast. We played just a few shows. We played one show here in New York and Brooklyn. We played a show in Troy, the Hellseeker Goth Night, which is so fun. And then we
Yeah.
played my alma mater, Hampshire College, and then we finished off at AS 220 in Providence, which is a long-running DIY space, which was like a lot of fun. But as far as upcoming shows, we had so much fun at this goth night. I think we're going to kind of try to do these sort of like featured artists in a goth DJ night thing
Mark.
for probably the rest of the year. Because we're still in the place where like we're pretty serious about who we are, artistic voice. I think it's coming across, it's forming.
Cool.
But I don't think we have like the large enough fan base, and I think we want to sort of build a sort of like regional fan base and plug into like I don't know about you, but I found like a lot of good connection between like the youth,
Yeah.
like
Absolutely. No. That's a
Yeah.
really good place to start because now it's like really starting to the scene is generating a lot more is what I've been hearing a lot now. So
yeah, there's a lot of new energy. There's a lot of want for something new. I think you go to some of the longer running goth nights, and those can be really fun. But I think I watched your interview with Dusty from Vision Video, and he mentioned something about you go to these goth nights and you hear the same 20 or so songs again and again. And I love those songs. We all love those songs, but I think like the kids want a little something new. And I think that energy was definitely there when we played at the No Fun show in
Yeah.
Troy. It was hell of a night,
Yeah.
really. They were singing along with us, shouting along with us,
Yeah.
cheering and screaming. It was fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, and it felt really cool to meet people, just like follow people, just be able to, have that kind of personability with the audience. So it was great to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the question was, do we have anything coming up? We do have an album we're finishing up for the
Uh-huh.
end of the year, Debtor's Disco,
Yeah.
which is a sort of like it's sort of dance focused, but it's also building on our sort of political, sort of motivations. We have a sort of agenda. We have a thing that we're trying to get across and trying to talk about like sort of the contemporary moment, but sort of how much of the punk rock that like we listened to growing up, like it's still relevant today, as relevant as it was back then because so many of the issues persist. In a weird way, it's almost like the chasm of wealth has created a bigger potential audience,
yeah.
for better or worse.
Right. Are
Yeah.
you still involved like in sort of political and social organizations? Is there anything you want to raise awareness while you're on the pod?
Yeah, I think, almost every city, St. Louis included, every city has local mutual aid organizations, and they're doing the work that our local governments are failing to do. And, your sort of on the ground activists are organizing to feed people, basically fill in the gaps where social services kind of tend to fall apart. And that's one of the ways that we became friends, working in our local mutual aid group on the Upper East Side
Yeah.
in Manhattan, where you and your mom and your brother grew up. And
Hmm.
yeah, it's been really enriching because as you may or may not know, I ran for office
Yeah.
a couple of times, lost every time. But like one of the things I love about mutual aid is it does all the things I always wanted politics to do in a sort of material direct action kind of way. Like we
Yeah.
can get involved in protest and we can get involved with actions. We can also like go to the bakery that's about to throw away 200 pounds of bread and we can make sure it gets handed out to people and end
Hmm.
that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's smart. And we used to do a little bit just as like fun. It wasn't really involved. It was we used to go into St. Louis and kind of help out the poor. Where when it's cold out, we would make homemade chili, and then we would kind of hand out some chili and kind of do some like a coat drive and stuff like that. And especially the ones that are who are vets, ones who are struggling with mental
Yeah.
illness and trying to struggle and try to find their way through life now post war, or just not getting help through the with the GI Bill or the VA or anything like that. So I really appreciate hearing more people get more involved socially and politically. Yeah.
Yeah. And in a lot of ways, now just like connecting the dots, it's kind of like our music follows the same ethos, right? Where there's this want to involve people, there's this like finger on the pulse of what's happening through the music that's directly communicated, even though there's more poetry sometimes to the lyrics, which is really fun to have that balance. But yeah, just like we said about the show, last week, just being able to talk to the audience, like build a fan base, but also just build a community
Yeah.
that's into this music, that's into this message. And mutual aid is another example of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good deal. No, that's cool. And yeah, even networking, I've noticed it's a little networking works a little bit better when it's, kind of word of mouth or face to face when you're connecting with, going to venues or going to goth nights and stuff like that. That really helps. And when you're trying to just, connect with people and go, oh, hey, I have a project, check this out, or this, then it's tremendously beneficial.
Yeah, I mean, I started with a local DJ, DJ IVO. We started this playlist and now showcase. Our second one's coming up in June, called New Goth New York, and really, it's all about doing sort of like it's taking the mutual aid ethos and putting it into music, just building community, like. Finding, we got a beer sponsor, we got, local acts who are like up and coming and like building their fan base. And it's also a way for like a fan base to plug in and be like, okay, what's going on in Darkwave, synth punk, goth, post punk generally, like what is happening in New York? Well, we're trying to collect all the Pokemon and find a big sort of petting zoo for us all.
It's smart.
Uh,
Yeah, that's cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, cool. Let's start like right with the music. Tell me about your guys' growing up. You can start with one or the other, or just kind of chime in a little bit. What was kind of your building blocks growing up? Did you guys grow up in New York, or did you kind of just migrate there? And then kind of how you started listening to music and kind of getting more involved in music.
I'll go first.
You go first.
Yeah, I grew up a trailer punk myself in Western Massachusetts, a trailer with no heat and constantly bursting pipes. But yeah, sort of grew up sort of on the sort of edges between the, abject poverty and working class. And so music always was an escape for me until it became vehicle for a sort of intellectual growth. And that happened through, we're talking like Crass, Bad Religion. What are these guys talking about? And then really getting into sort of the lyricism, the social activism, and the way these things kind of work together. So I really like punk rock was really important to me, and even like broadening like bands like Skinny Puppy, who like they were concerned about like animal testing and environmental concerns and things like that. And I always needed and still craves like music that has like some sort of like reason for being, because I think the goal is to entertain, is to like loosen one up, but also like to be grounded in reality is always sort of very important. So yeah, and I got into playing music live with my friends, tried some little punk bands, didn't really gel. Did a few solo projects, used to tour in like late high school and college with some various iterations of different solo acts or with other bands. And I found myself starting the machinations of Midnight Choir while I was actually living after college. I lived in Berlin for a year and a half, and I'd always kind of kept more into the ground of acoustic or guitar-based music, and I started to go more into the electronic, just what I'm seeing, what I'm experiencing in a sort of like dance music based culture. I saw Alec Empire while I was there, which was awesome. I mean, I scraped and scrounged while I was there to like get every little drop I could. Leonard Cohen played the O2 Arena, and I just stood on the bridge that overlooked the O2 Arena and watched like part of the set. It was like so really just I've always been kind of a sponge for music, and um they started to bring the influences together around 2015, 2016. And then I was in Chicago at that time. I moved to New York, and then I got involved in like politics and volunteering locally and things like that, and really got involved in like local politics. And I thought like, well, I should run for office because I've got these values, I'm determined, I've organized things in the past from like 9/11, like going down to DC for like the WTO related protests and things. I've been involved for a long time. And so I thought, okay, I can organize people. I could do this. And it was pretty naive because it costs a shitload to like run a campaign. If you don't have the connections already, you need to have your own like bucket of money, sort of like Andrew Yang style. Otherwise, you're just up the creek and you're just like on the phone all day. People are hanging up on you. People are yelling at you. You're on the street corner handing out like flyers. People are yelling at you. It's a really good lesson for being on stage. Became a much better performer when, after about 8 years of like being involved in politics, I was like, okay, that's enough for me. I need to find another way to connect. And mutual aid was a nice bridge, and it persists in my life. But I find that the music now fulfills a lot of that community building, whatever, along with mutual aid. It's like a two-handed approach for me. And so now I'm like really happy to be in a community of artists who are really trying to push the edges of the, boundaries of post-punk, really mining through like the old material, but trying to form new things. And a lot of people are really working hard. I think that's the plus minus of being involved in music in New York, is I think that like it really takes a lot to keep a project going. I ran into a guy we played a show with in January, that benefit we played, and I was like, "Oh, how's the band? You guys were so good." And he's like, "Yeah, we broke up." And it's like classic story. They play one, two shows and they break up because it's just like it takes a lot of pressure. We're all under a lot of pressure. And
Yeah.
frankly, like when I was a struggling artist, like I couldn't do it. The myth of the starving artist is like I support anyone who can do it, but I also think like there's no like beauty in that. It sucks. You know what I mean? Like I have like a good 9 to 5 now, and that's why I feel comfortable like spending a few $100, like renting a car, going driving around, like spending a little money on promoting the band because it's taxing, it's expensive, and the reward is low.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important to have that perspective that like that story of the like struggling artist who like breaks through. It's just the system is not built for that anymore. And I think it behooves us all to like generate more community.
Mhm.
So I don't know if that makes sense for my journey.
No, it does. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Ah,
So,
definitely. Yeah, I'll start just with growing up, like general life trajectory for me, and then I'll get into music stuff. So I grew up in Manhattan. I grew up with predominantly my mom and my brother, although we have a much bigger family in different areas of the country. But I grew up here, and I went to public school, and then I went to one of the public universities in upstate New York. And after I graduated, just really I saw this quote. Um, I was like whimsical like that at that time. I saw
of
this
course.
quote
Sure.
and then it like, changed my life. It was like, it wasn't the fish that discovered water. And the way I interpreted that quote was, you need to get out of what you've always been in order to understand what it was the whole time. And so I majored in psychology, which that'll make sense in a second, because that's literally what I'm doing with my life now. But I also studied Spanish, and I was always interested in learning a different language. And I'd grown up just like hearing Spanish. Spanish is everywhere, but I never really dedicated like concerted effort to it. So after I graduated, I found a job teaching English. This was a couple of years before the pandemic, in Ecuador. First, I was in Quito, the capital of Ecuador. And then I applied for something called Fulbright, which is like a grant, but essentially to teach English in Uruguay.
Cool.
And I ended up living in Uruguay, yeah, for a couple of years. And um, that time, my early 20s to mid 20s, now I'm 29, that was a very formative time because again, like I saw the water, like I saw from outside the bowl, right? And during that time, when I was living in Uruguay, I learned a lot more about the military dictatorships that the US had orchestrated throughout South America and Latin America, in the past century. And I had a really important person to me out there whose father was a musician, still is a musician, but during the military dictatorships, he was held in solitary confinement for a year because he was singing out against all the bullshit that was happening. And so I remember talking with him a lot and kind of just, reinforcing the power of music and why people in power can be so threatened by art, right? Which is expressive, which explores all of this in a way that really cuts through the fat and really gets to the heart. So just music, the power of community, the power of solidarity, just understanding, really forming a stronger understanding of my beliefs and like my moral code, I guess, and my general humanitarian stance on the world. Um, and then with music more particularly, I started getting more serious about music when I was down in Uruguay too, because of the connection with this musician. Um, but also, I'd always been interested in singing. I played the baritone horn in middle school, which was great.
Right.
But I couldn't really sing and play that at the same time. So I always wanted to have a musician or have an instrument that I could sing on top of. So I thought, like Taylor Swift style, like guitar, like something. But when I was 17 years old, I got really, really into Bob Dylan, like very obsessive with Bob Dylan. Blood on the Tracks, like became my favorite album.
That's one of our big overlaps.
Yeah, we connected more with Bob Dylan, like so many. And maybe we could tell the story of Midnight Choir too, like the name.
Well, yeah, it's a reference to Leonard Cohen
Right, not Bob
lyric,
Dylan,
yeah,
but like
but yeah.
same, atmosphere of Bob Dylan. But anyway, like again, like the importance of political messages and using music to reflect the times and yeah, just the power of music. Also, I'm kind of backtracking, but my dad also worked in the music industry, recording industry. He passed a couple of years ago. But he was a huge influence on me as well, and he just showed me a ton of music. Um, anyway, but yeah, so just going back to all of that, I've always had a really wide taste in music. There are certain artists who I'm just like super obsessed with and I have my hyper fixations on, but being in this act, like Patrick is constantly sending me music and I'm learning more about the scene, but also about music and the history of music in general. Patrick is like an expert in Depeche Mode, has taught me so much about Depeche Mode, like all of this. So
Wait, I'm supposed to come off as cool and sincere.
Hey, Depeche Mode's cool in my book. Don't worry. So
Anyway.
what? I'm sorry. I did. Do you want to add anything else, or are you pretty much?
That's pretty much it. I guess the only loose end that I didn't tie up was psychology. I'm a PhD student in clinical psychology, so I'm training as a psychologist. But just linking it back to beliefs and activism and all of that, I think it really behooves the health professions to move beyond individualizing or pathologizing just the individual for having depression, anxiety, whatever it is. Like there's so much societal stuff that influences that. So that's
is it depression or is it capitalism?
Yeah, right. Yeah. What's the mixture? Yeah.
Comes together.
Yeah.
So Midnight Choir, that was, you started it, and then Sarah came in later. Okay, tell me about the sort of building blocks and kind of the steps and process of finding that sort of style of music, and then kind of how it shifted through each album, and then how you two met and kind of went, all right, let's work together at this.
Yeah. So I started moving in this electronic direction. I think, one of the things I realized, like, especially as during the rightward shift of American politics in the last like 10 years or so, you had the Proud Boys claiming Depeche Mode as like the official music of the Proud Boys for a little while. You remember this? And Depeche Mode was like, screw that. Like, we're like mixed gender, sexuality, mixed race for Martin Gore. Like, we're not into this shit. But I realized that I wanted something that was cogent enough to and clear enough that could not be co-opted, at least like one song. So that's like where Molotov comes in. But so yeah, I started doing this stuff alone, and I knew that Sarah had been sort of writing her own songs and wanted to play some more music. And I said, look, I want to play live, but I don't want it to be a solo act.
I was definitely, so my solo act is Slaguna.
Hmm.
That has its own story, but it's definitely like dreamy bedroom acoustic
Folk,
lo-fi, yeah,
folky,
folky.
bedroom dream pop kind of thing.
It's made with
Yeah.
garage bands.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fun.
And so but I had the kind of like, I wanted like a bigger sort of
Yeah.
bigger thing. And so I did it solo, but now we have this kind of dynamic that I describe as like Sherlock and Watson, where like I come up with the idea based on intuition, and I get the sort of like insight and analysis. I'm like, okay, do you think is this something you wanna
Right.
you want to be playing on stage? Is this weird, or is this cool, or is it is it upsetting or embarrassing? And then I get some feedback and then work on it more and then bring in like where it can be expanded with Sarah. So it's a really nice dynamic
Yeah.
now. Yeah, and I think like we check in with each other pretty often. We've sort of brought our sort of stage production to the next level with new equipment so that we can really have a lot more control, and that it's very important to me that even though like I do a lot of the initial writing solo, that like it's not a dictatorship, because ultimately like when we're up there, when we're taking photos, there's two of us, so it's like 50-50. So like if the song sucks, we suck. I don't suck, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a shared responsibility. So
Definitely.
I try to approach it with that level of consciousness, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And Patrick, I really love kind of the flow we have, and yes, you're writing all of it and you're putting it all together, but there's always something there that we can communicate about and
Hmm.
like work on in the editing room
Yeah,
that I really cherish.
yeah.
Just little things, like
Little
little
lyrical
harmonies, little,
switches,
yeah.
yeah.
And I learned the drum pad that I play for I don't have any history of drumming, so sometimes it's been really hard for me to learn that, but
Yeah.
I really appreciate being able to just like learn this new thing,
Yeah, but give yourself some credit, my friend. I mean, after our shows, like people are like, "Yeah, you're fine. You though, you're the star." But give it, like, let her make her sing more. I'm like, okay, guys, sorry. You know? No,
Is
but
that, is that going to be the new approach with the new album? Are you guys really coming in just full swing, both of you guys together, just at 50-50 type situation?
I think, well, some of these songs are a couple years old at this point, but I think there are a lot of like shout choruses, like some of them we've already started playing live, but like, so I think like we come together mostly in the chorus, but I think it's like, I honestly like I have some friends who are incredible players, incredible performers. That's not me. I'm not an incredible live performer. I sing and I can sing, but it's almost like I don't want to play guitar and sing. That's hard. So I kind of respectfully like give Sarah the same ground and like say like, okay, if you can sing and play this, if not, we could throw it in the backing track. But like
Right.
whatever sort of works, because I want it to be an engaging performance, but I don't want to set us up for failure. I think there in the live performance, I'm partially why it was a thought to have Sarah do percussion is because there are, and I don't want to be one of these people who's like talking crap about anybody, because there are a lot of great performers out there, but there's some performers I love where they have a keyboard on stage and they're just playing a couple notes, and it's not really the most engaging
Of
thing.
course. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whereas I think watching Sarah like control the rhythm of the song, it brings like a different kind of tension to the
Yeah.
performance, and makes it a little more critical,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so one guy singing up there with a backing track, again, a lot of people are able to do this very well, but I don't think that's me. And so having someone there who's also like we're building it in front of you, I think there are lots of great performers that are able to do that with, modular synthesizers doing crazy shit. But I think like the norm of like the dark wave and post-punk world is kind of like a couple of notes singing or a guitar and singing. And I don't think I can get more into the crowd. I can engage a lot more. And more engaging than playing a couple of notes, which she could do and is not bad if anyone's doing that and watching this.
Yeah, it just kind of speaks to what we were talking about before, kind of this more interactive thing. It's just kind of like we would feel weird on stage, like not interact. It just feels better.
Our stage show has for the last year started with a 2 minute video of Angela Davis. So it's kind of we have a kind of I wouldn't say what's the word I'm looking for? Platonic kind of like I mean we are telling as much as we are entertaining, you know.
Yeah. And then when you started, tell me about the different studio setup and how it kind of did it evolve and you were learning, DAWs. And then how
Mhm.
does your setup differ from your stage, gear and everything like that?
Well, it's actually it used to be further apart. Now it's a lot closer together. We actually use so that we can hear the backing tracks in our in-ear monitors and things. We actually run Pro Tools live now.
Okay, cool.
And I've been working in Pro Tools for over 20 years, and I know it's got its haters,
Oh,
but it's what I know. And I would say the way that I perform and write and record is a little bit more is a little bit I think other people do things more elegantly. Like I see some great performers who are able to like run a sequencer and okay, put something on top of it, add something else, whatever. But I'm more I like to use kind of weird off-brand keyboards or like sort of sort of
right.
older equipment and add effects, et cetera, in the DAW and really kind of sort of manipulate the sound as much as possible because the interface of like a modular synthesizer is too hard for me. But I like the effects the I like effect pedal plus keyboard, is the ideal kind of setup. So a lot of our stuff is like I have this I think it's a Yamaha DX7 or something, and it's like the
Mhm.
one that what's his name? Uh Rick James stole from Prince for a little while and like made like Super Freak and a bunch of stuff. And I have this actual synthesizer, not the one, but like, one of those. And that I love, but it has weird ass sounds that don't really sound great, but you don't find in the sort of like standard Korg equipment that like everyone is using. And so
Mhm.
it has its cost benefits. I was saying when we were touring, I was like, oh yeah, you notice that like people are talking about gear. They're like, oh, I have one of these, or oh, this is cool, or oh, what do you like about this? We don't really have gear like that. So we can't have that sort of like break the ice gear conversation. So we kind of have to like we have to find other avenues to break the ice, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. And then, so, is that your primary where you'll sit down when you're writing or creating music? Is, the keyboards kind of, do you start with the beat? Do you start with the keys? What's your usual format?
I've become really comfortable stealing beats
Hmm.
from things. So like I have a song that comes from I think Outkast's Elevators. I
I,
have another one that comes from um Erica Badu song. This song
ooh,
you love, Kiss Me Deadly. We both sing on that. That's Aha's Take on Me.
oh, wow. Yeah.
But just the beat, just like the actual like the tempo, the percussion, like I kind of just like, okay, I want to use this, and then I kind of like go off on my own. And so I think that's like there's things that I like and love and respect about all of these songs. And I'm like, wow, that's something I've never thought of doing, or that's something I don't know how to do. How do I replicate that and then kind of make it my own? This song we played, Tempted, the bass line, we have a good friend of ours who's like just a huge Cure fan. She's seen 200 Cure shows. And I was
Oh,
like, how come you never told me that you noticed that we stole this bass line from A Forest, one of their most famous songs. She's
yeah.
like, oh no, that's why I like it. I'm like, oh, okay. You know what? And I think like there's a way that some artists I think will be like ashamed or shy about like showing their references or showing their, the things that they're taking. But I think it's really important to be in conversation with other artists.
Yeah.
That's that sort of community aspect. And I don't know, maybe people think I'm a jerk for taking these beats. I hope not.
Well, there's bits of, I mean, more people are straight up just stealing beats, but I can see if you're, there's always been sampling, there's always been, kind of borrowing, or there's sort of taking a sample and kind of modulating it or tweaking it to kind of make it your own. So I
Yeah.
can see where you're getting that, like, oh, I'm so influenced by this. I'm gonna, kind of tweak it in my own expressive way, if that makes sense.
And I think the act of remaking it is for me as a writer, as a, and I think us as a band, it's instructive. You know what I mean? Like, how did they make this beat? How did they play this bass line? Why are these three notes from this Cure song so hypnotic for 7 minutes? You know what I mean? And really trying to sort of like it's like revisiting the site of some historical event and trying to imagine, you're looking at the Gettysburg battlefield or whatever, and you're trying to be like, okay, so they came over this hill. Huh, wild. Like I don't know. It's not a great analogy, but
No, I get that. No, that's cool. What emotion or idea are you constantly chasing, like in your music, whether you realize it or not?
Mm.
I was thinking about this, and I think I used to be kind of like very like kind of like curious about death, the paranormal, sort of otherworldly, like what we couldn't see and what we couldn't touch until, like, frankly, like I had some loss in my personal life, family, and the like, and I had the direct impact of that, the direct experience with that. And now I realize, like, it's so important to create a place for people, frankly, like myself, who struggled to fit in, were frustrated with what they saw, frustrated with the system, but just like, am I the only one who sees this? And kind of like let other people know that you're not the only one who sees this. I was thinking about this in advance of the interview, and I think artists like Marilyn Manson and John Lydon, there are things in their career that I really connected with when I was younger. And to see them take these turns towards like the right, towards like sort of seeing themselves as victims when they're the ones that are in power now. I think like this is what happens when you are so committed to fighting the system and never form a coherent political perspective. And I think I want to show the possibility for both. I mean, I'm in my 40s. I want to write good songs. I want to connect with people and I want to communicate. And so I'm hoping that these things can all converge in a way that communicates that a better world is possible. Shit does suck, but there are poetic ways of looking at the state you're in, and there are poetic ways of organizing together, and there are poetic ways of fighting this thing.
Absolutely.
I close more and more of our shows now, especially when they're sort of packed, by telling the youth, we only get through this together. Because my hope is that I think a lot of dark music comes from this feeling of darkness, isolation, a sort of loneliness and solitude. But I think it's important to like look around that Darkwave show or whatever and be like, oh, all these people all feel the same way. I mean, to bring back Dusty Gannon into it again, it's like there are a lot of freaking people at a Vision Video show who are all feeling these emotions. My hope and desire is that they feel truly connected to one another, not just to the artist, but that is being spread to the rest of the group. Does that make sense?
No,
That's the
absolute sense. Yes, absolutely.
ending the isolation.
Right. Sarah, do you want to add anything?
That was beautiful.
Right.
I don't really have much to add. I mean, if anything, I guess you just articulated what I've been feeling within me.
No, for sure.
But yeah, I just really enjoy the entire texture of it. There's a darkness to it, but there's a hope and there's a richness. And there's an electricity.
Yeah.
That's the vaguest way I can put what Patrick just said. Yeah.
Yeah. Shaking people up a little,
Good.
but in a kind of way that you kind of like throw. This is really paternalistic, really bad, but sorry, forgive me. But like throwing a kid in the air. Like there's a little bit of danger, but there's a little bit of joy, and it's going to be okay. We're in it together.
We all like that. That's great. I like that.
Well, there's this. I've always kind of take on sort of my own anxieties and going, because most people once they get anxious, they close off or they don't. I'm going push past this. What's making you, anxious? What's making you fear something? Well, it's the fear of the unknown. So it's like, well, then push past that and step out of that sort of comfort that you're in and break free of that and then find what's out on the other side, if that makes sense.
Right. Like it's like what happens after this, right?
Yeah.
Like what happens after nihilism? What happens after the depression? What happens after the anxiety,
Mhm.
right? There has to be some sort of transformation if you're going to survive. Yeah.
Absolutely. What artists really spoke to you, whether it's music, authors, or directors, painters, or any other? Is there any artist out there that really just speaks to you and kind of influences you?
I can name a
Go
few
first.
off the
Yeah.
top of my head. I mean, this computer's sitting on top of a Matthew Barney book. Big Matthew Barney fan. I'm currently reading Naomi Klein's Doppelganger, her new book. Really fantastic way of like looking through perspectives on the world. I love, love, love The Knife and Fever Ray. Really just one of the just a life-changing kind of
Oh yeah.
performer. Just really great. Bucket list includes Tori Amos.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Big David Lynch fan, as we all are.
May
Uh,
rest in peace.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And there are lots of great new people who I really respect. Nux, who we spoke about earlier, so fantastic.
Yeah.
Lathe of Heaven, one of my favorite local acts. Really good, great stuff. Ghost Cop, Rare DM. There's some lo people who are really doing it big locally, and I like to see people finding their place, finding their hustle. There's a guy we know and love, Mango Dog. He's a local guy, and he just hustling.
Yeah.
And then forever, Miles Davis.
Oh,
Hmm.
come on. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like the easy bop stuff, the post bop stuff. I like the noisy stuff. I like the late stuff where he's covering friggin' uh what's her name? Time After Time, Cyndi Lauper.
Hmm.
Rest in peace, Miles Davis. Respect, Cyndi Lauper.
Hmm.
Holland. What do
I was
Beautiful.
let me add something. It was funny. I just out of random, I was watching this documentary about I think it was Vince McMahon from WWE, and she was one
Yeah.
of the earlier wrestling females that wanted to get into pro wrestling. I had no clue about that. She would get involved and everything. I was just like, oh, I didn't know Cyndi Lauper was like that. Anyways, go ahead. Sorry, I just
Oh
wanted to
yeah, she's a nut. She's an absolute nut. Yeah.
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 No, I feel like I should get much better at answering this question
Oh,
because
yeah.
everything that I'm into just kind of seeps into the world of Sarah and I just like forget it. But when
Okay.
someone mentions it, it's there.
Right.
But I really, like I was talking about Bob Dylan just now. I mean, just inventiveness with words, when he won that Nobel the prize, like that was just hilarious. And but it speaks to I always think of that line from Stuck Inside of Mobile with the Memphis Blues again.
Mhm.
Um, she punched my eyelid and smoked my cigarette. She smoked, it's like the reverse. How does it go? He like does it reverse. And I just fucking love that because it makes so much sense. Like there's this way in which everything is frantically interconnected. And so the mixing up of words and like the playfulness and the liveliness
Love it.
with mundane things, I think that just really influences me. Um, Lady Lamb the Beekeeper, I got really into when I was in college. She also has this kind of just like restless energy with words. She was probably, when she was putting out a lot of this music, and her voice is just like, it has this edge to it that I really appreciate, like this frustration, this like wanting to experience everything,
Mhm.
and learn everything and express everything. Like I really enjoy that. Some other artists, Benjamin Booker was really influential on me in college. He also has that kind of edge to his voice. I guess that's a common thread, this kind of like
Yeah. Yeah.
frustration with being alive, but also wanting to experience everything.
I remember you really loved seeing Houses. Is it Houses of Heaven? Do you know this post-punk band?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Their drummer was
Yeah.
pretty awesome.
She was great. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So just so many people. I also was heavily influenced by a lot of music down in Uruguay, right? There was an Argentinian artist named Luis Alberto Spinetta. And he has this wonderful 9-minute song called uh Cantata de Puentes Amarillos or Amarillos. So like a song for yellow bridges, and it's an expression of what was going on during the military dictatorship
Mm.
down there and what he was seeing, and it just like frantically changes style like within this 9 minutes. I just love that kind of
Really
work.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thought about writing a song in Spanish, like doing like just a song that's in Spanish, like that. I think that would be cool.
You've touched upon something. Should I tell him? I'm Puerto Rican.
Yeah,
She's the one who speaks Spanish.
yeah.
I'm not liking that at all. I'm Irish.
But yeah, I've thought about it because not just because it's like, there's a Spanish darkwave post-punk. We have a lot of listeners
I've been
south of.
trying to find more. Like I'm like, please, especially in the LA area. I'm like, I've been trying to
Oh
network
yeah.
my way through and just go, give me more. Like I want it all. So
Yeah.
Yeah. My friend who I mentioned earlier who I do the New Goth New York with, she goes by DJ IVO. She has a Spanish post-punk darkwave night. It was actually just
Yeah.
on Friday,
Yeah.
called Lujuria, Luju
Mm-hmm.
Luhu RIA.
Yeah.
Lujuria.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff out there, and I think we want to do that both for the like socio-political element and I speak some Spanish, but not very well.
And we just played with a band this past
Oh,
week.
Pilgrims of Yearning, and they are
Pilgrims
from
of Yearning.
Chile, yeah, right?
Yeah, the lead
Yeah.
singer is from Chile, Jules, and
Hmm.
then the guitarist is from Colombia.
Yep, yep,
And that was really great. They
yeah.
have some songs in
They
Spanish as
had some
well.
songs in Spanish too,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Big Bob Dylan fans. What did you think of the new movie?
Oh.
My favorite is the No Direction Home
Yeah,
documentary made by
absolutely. Me too.
Martin Scorsese.
That
I'll
was
sit
great.
down for 3 hours any day of the week and watch that.
Yeah.
It's so good.
So good.
And yeah, I don't know. I could not take it seriously. Like I was like giggling the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, I really love that I'm Not There. I think it was made by Paul Thomas Anderson. No, different director.
Mm.
That,
Came out in 2007.
that
It
I'm
has
not,
I'm not there. It wasn't PTA. It was
there's another. I always
it
mix
was
them up.
yeah, it was the other director I always mix up.
I'll,
I
I'll
always,
Somebody
pull it up 1 second. Let me pull it
yeah.
up. And now I'm trying to think of um
is the guy who made Happiness.
Todd Haynes.
Todd
Happiness.
Haynes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
he has Heath Ledger playing Bob Dylan. He
A
has
bunch of people.
a
Yeah.
bunch of people.
Yeah.
So many, and it's kind of a strange movie, but I really like it for that. The kind of
Mhm.
and they infuse music into it. Timmy Chalamet did a great job, in this movie.
He's watching right now.
But I was so annoyed. He's watching,
Yeah.
right? He went to LaGuardia. I grew up in New York City kid. Hey, what's up? I remember just being, I mean, I enjoyed it. Like when I walked out of the movie, I did enjoy it, but I only started to not enjoy it as much the more I thought about it. And obviously like I'm not working in film, so what does my opinion matter? But I was so annoyed so towards the end when they're playing at the festival and
Mhm.
got the electric and everyone is annoyed and booing them. Right, they're trying to express that historical event, but then someone or that event, but someone in the crowd goes like, Judas, and yells that at him, for betraying. And I got so annoyed because that didn't happen there.
That
No,
happened at the Royal Albert Hall. Yeah, that's now we're friggin' nerds about this.
Right.
that's okay, because I was poking fun at certain things where I go, oh, okay, that didn't happen. That, you know what I'm saying? Like I understand completely.
Yeah, yeah. What's your favorite music biopic or documentary?
Yeah.
Oh, geez. I go to Control a lot. The Joy Division one.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
24-hour Party People.
I was gonna say 24-hour Party People. You got to give it up if you like Control. Yeah.
It's a fun one. I'm trying to
I
think.
introduced her to Happy Mondays during the drive through Massachusetts.
Right. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. I'm trying to think. Oh my gosh, you're putting me on the spot. What I wanted with the Bob, what I want them to make is I'm drawing a blank where he would see him in the hospital. Woody Guthrie, give me
Oh
that
yeah,
story. That's what, because I was so captivated by that
Yeah.
in
Hmm.
any of the rest of the movie. I was like, I love Bob Dylan. I know where this is going,
Yeah.
but the Woody Guthrie, give me that. I would like to
Yeah.
take a big bite of that one.
I saw a fantastic exhibition at the what's the museum owned by the guy from Chase Bank? I forget. The Morgan, a
Hmm.
library here in New York, and it was like I think that's where it was, and they just had this beautiful sprawling like collection of his writing, whatever his lyric writing, and told the story of how like he had like 12 kids and his like wife was like very supportive, but like he's like on the road constantly, and then he got sick early. Like he's in
Yeah.
his like 40s or something, I think. He
Yeah.
worked his ass off and then to little or no support.
Yeah. Wasn't it Huntington's
Yeah,
disease
I
that
think
he
so. Yeah.
developed? Yeah, degenerative brain
Yeah.
disorder. But yeah, that slice of the movie was so delicious. And it was like,
Mhm.
can we extend this, right? And I was okay with that slice of it being a little bit confabulated because, right, we don't really know and it's such lore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was wild. And then there's I wish it would have been a Jeff Buckley movie because I know
Mhm.
Mm.
he had the Tim Buckley where he was writing letters to his dad, but I was like, give me the because I know they've been working on it for years. I'm like, but give me the Jeff Buckley movie. I want
Mm.
all of that. That would be cool through his process of singer-songwriter and then playing at Cine and all this, just his touring around Europe and then trying to find his way into the United States and
I'd
uh,
love a 6 hour Leonard Cohen
yes,
biopic because he lived such a wild, sprawling life. The bohemian New Yorker, the living in the mountains with as a monk. It's just like just all over the place, breaking hearts wherever he goes. You can find these interviews when he's in his 70s and he's talking to like a woman half his age, and he's just like, "Well, we could get a drink after this if you'd like," and she's just like, "Oh, like." It's really good. He just said Riz for days.
oh, absolutely. That's
Anyway,
funny. This kind of adds to the previous one. What when you get older, are there any other artists you find more relatable? Like for me, I've been looking more of like surrealist song, like Tom Waits or Captain Beefheart. Like the older I get, the more like I'm understanding a lot of dark and grittier stuff. Do you guys have that sort of, where you were kind of like, oh, whatever, but as you got older, you're going, oh, this is starting to really speak to me now.
Yeah.
I think um I had a, sort of loose relationship with her when I was in high school, not with her, but with her music, Tori Amos.
Mm-hmm.
And now I see her still putting out music. Same thing with PJ Harvey, still putting out powerful records, still putting out strong artistic statements. Nick Cave, still putting out really strong artistic statements, and of course Leonard Cohen. I think Dylan, it's a fun listen, but it's like not really hitting the same in the last, 20, 25 years. But I think there are still some artists who show how to maintain their autonomy and their artistry and to remain captivating. I mean, you know, I'm in that part of my life that like I think a lot of probably the artists you speak with may fear. They may fear. I mean, you talk with Martin Atkins, right? And he's like been doing it every damn day for so long. He's worked with every. When you got into the questions about the Ogre Ritalin project, I was like, more, more.
I know.
Yeah, and Legendary Pink Dots too. I mean, they're still putting out stuff and they are showing no signs of slowing down and still innovating, still kind of like taking the Rubik's Cube and spinning it and trying to, find new ways through it. So I think that's what I really think of for like the future of this project and the future of like writing. Yeah.
So too. Anything, Sarah? Do you want to add anything?
I mean, a whole bunch of people.
You don't have to listen more.
But just rediscovering kind of like the roots of like music always comes from somewhere. I remember a very influential friend in high school, like he was a drummer, he was a musician. He told me, Sarah, there are only three songs in the world. Like everything else, stems from them. And I don't know, I just remember him saying that. And so just the power of understanding where the music comes from and something as simple as, understanding that like a lot of Elvis's music, did not come from him, right? He appropriated it. Um,
And other writers,
and other writers, but it's just like this all comes from somewhere. And so whenever I discover um kind of like that obscure writer or that less famous musician or anyone who is just also making music, it's just really rewarding. It feels really, really rewarding. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Tell me which stage show that which concert did you attend that really just blew your mind and just really influenced you to wanting to get up on stage?
I think not to, I'm no bullshit. I really think like seeing Nux and seeing a lot of the synthesized shows, and that happened here in New York. It's a night of like goth and dark wave and electronic kind of stuff that's been going on about 10, 12 years. Seeing a lot of these acts and seeing like how they put together such a strong performance, even early on in their career. But I think there's really a way, like I saw his Nick Cave's recent tour, and I've seen him a couple times before, and seeing the way he like is determined to like connect with the audience. And I think that determination to make a memorable connection to the audience is really powerful, because some people are great virtuosic players and they are a joy to watch. And you go to like one of the jazz clubs downtown and you can sit in a basement and quietly like just marvel. I am not a prolific, incredible singer. We are not the two best players, but I think we write really good songs and we have an ability to connect with people, just by sort of bringing in with a hook, being memorable, whatever. And so I think like somebody like Nick Cave happens to play phenomenally and can connect. God bless. Well, if I can choose one or the other, I'll choose, the one I can do. And so I think that's a stage show that really, because I saw him at the Barclays Center, which is a stadium, but it felt like we were at a rock club. It was good.
Yeah. I mean, I've been to so many concerts, but if anything, I really liked the show we went to at TBI the other night,
Yeah.
which that was Nux Mama. She did a great job. So did Yora. But there was a show I remember they were touring, Rubble Bucket. So very different kind of genre, I guess, but it's just a really big group of musicians. There's a lot of brass music, and they were touring and they came to my college, and I just remember just being like, what is this euphoria? Just the way that sometimes you're at a show and the music just like takes all of you in the crowd on a wave, and you're all just like, we're so high and we're not taking drugs. We're listening to music and we're all here together. And whenever I have an experience like that, if I can be part of that in the creation, and in the composition of that for someone else and be part of it, from the stage, I would love to do that too. Yeah.
I also saw, sorry to keep
Yeah.
pushing on this. I saw Tears for Fears a couple of years ago. And my God, the way they could grab, 10,000 people into the palm of their hand or whatever, it was like pretty powerful. Like people singing along, looking like they're about to cry. Like that was pretty incredible.
Yeah.
So again, some people put on a great stage show, but some people really can connect. Like this was at the Darker Waves Festival, and right before them, I saw B-52s. Again, great performance, but that's happening up there. The Tears for Fears energy is coming down here. They're reaching out, and it's beautiful. And I hope that we're able to do something along those lines.
Absolutely. I went and saw, I mean, this was 2010, the last time Atari Teenage Riot, Alec Empire was touring,
Oh yeah.
and I saw them in Chicago, and small venue. I mean, it was like it I think it was the Bottom Lounge, and it was like not
I
that
might have been at this show as well.
okay, so for me, it was like a religious experience. Like we got there, or like we left from St. Louis, traveled to Chicago, went to this ragged hotel. We're just like, we just need a place to stay for the night and then get out of here. And we went to the venue, and it was just like they just held everybody and was just shaking them up, dude. Oh my gosh, like I was sweating. I was like fighting for air. Like everybody was like, it was like a religious experience for me. And then when we got out, it started raining, and I just felt like I was like baptized in that moment where it was just like I was just like,
Yeah.
oh, like I felt like I could take on the world.
Yeah, I
Oh my
think I might have
God.
been
Yeah.
there. It was I was in Chicago 2009 to
Yeah.
2015, and I'm
Mhm.
pretty I that sounds familiar to me. It was
Yeah.
2010, you said?
Yeah, it was is it Goth and Caustic were the openers, I think.
Yeah, I think I remember this. And then a couple
Really?
years later, Nick Endo came
Yeah.
through
Mhm.
on her own, and those were just like such like intense performances.
Yeah.
Just very intense. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think that intensity, like if we can't do it with volume and production, maybe I can do it by being, a ham. I don't know. Let you, they, others be the judge.
Right, exactly. When do you know a song is truly finished? And have you ever gone back to like change one after its sort of release?
Yeah, it's really hard to say. I mean, where we are right now, where like I used to release stuff pretty independently, but I am not the strongest mixer masterer on the planet. And so I think like everything we've released for the last like year and a half has been under the umbrella of like a demo because I think ultimately I want to give the due of what these songs deserve. And I think now that we're playing live more, I think we're both finding our voices in different ways. And I'm listening to older songs, that the Deaders Disco songs, and thinking like, oh, I didn't know who I was quite yet. I didn't know who I was in this project as a performer, how I wanted to sing these songs. But a couple of them we've been playing live. We've played live a dozen times or more now. And now I'm like, oh, okay. I want to sing it like the way that connects with people rather than the way that I thought in my apartment with my headphones on was the right way to do it. Does that make sense? And
Okay.
so, um, to know when a song is done, I feel like is do I want to listen to it again? Do I want to listen to it again? And do I want to like catch a wave from it? You know what I mean? I think that's when I feel like it's done.
Hmm.
When I don't see the imperfections, I can catch the feeling. You'll always see imperfections in your own work, but when you can, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah.
you added a guitar riff to Kiss Me
Oh
Deadly.
yeah, there's a song that's like again embedded in demo form. We've played it a few times, and then I added new guitar parts, and it feels like a different song now. I think for both of us, and
It
we
just
started playing it live again.
Yeah, it just has more dimensionality.
Yeah,
It goes deeper, which
yeah,
is really nice.
yeah.
Yeah.
You guys do amazing covers. Tell me, is that just you learn it and then you play it, or is it like you you pick these ones for specific reasons?
Well, we did a set of Halloween covers that just for fun. I think
I
we
love
want
it.
to
That was a great
do
album.
that again. Yeah. Because that was a hell of a time.
That was fun.
And it's the first time Sarah got to carry the song vocally on her own. We did a sort of interpolation of a Misfits song, and we did like a pretty straight cover of a Susie and the Banshee song. And when we choose covers now, though, I think it's more about like the spiritual kind of connection. I think Personal Jesus was like a learning experience, Bela Lugosi's Dead was a learning experience, and when I showed her Need You Tonight by INXS, the cover that we recorded, she thought I had written the song.
Stop. Stop
This is
saying
where our
that.
references diverge. I'm like, that's very flattering, my friend, but um, and I think the thing I'm learning about doing a cover is like it's a powerful way to connect with the audience, but I think the shoe's gotta look like it fits. For those people who don't know the song as well, they need to question like, is this their song? And so with Personal Jesus,
Right.
I feel like, especially after this tour, like the suit fits pretty well now. I put it on and I'm like, I can live in it, I can improvise with it. Um, we have a Neil Young cover coming on Deaders Disco and a Kylie Minogue cover. And I think we're scaling back on the covers, though. I think we might do like a little bit of a Halloween thing again because that was so much fun,
That was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, do you think location is relevant in the style of music and how more popular the artist may be? Since being in New York, do you think a lot of that really takes an effect, just like being surrounded by all that culture?
Yeah.
Go.
I think there's an element where like some artists get to be a really big fish in a small pond, but then it's hard to get taken seriously like once you go into that bigger scene, even though they may be great. Like an act that I really loved, you know this act Vosh out of I think they're out of Delaware, VOSH. Fantastic. Like incredible vocals, like it just good mix of things you don't hear often. Sort of gothy, big, sort of like Broken Arrow, Nine Inch Nails drums. You've got these like epic female vocals. You've got these guitar riffs that are a little like Danzig bluesy, just like really just good dark stuff. But they're just not they're too far. If they were in New York, they'd be huge.
Yeah.
But like they're somewhere else, and so I think like they're kind of buried by a more sort of like maybe mediocre band like ours, you know? But I think being in the right place at the right time has always been very important for art and artists. And I think hopefully we're in the right place in the right time. I think being in community allows you to be influenced by one another, allows you to learn a little faster. It's kind of like the classic tale of like artists doing apprenticeships, you know? Like you can be a great, sort of figure painter living in the woods somewhere, but if you go, apprentice with Leonardo, okay, well, you learn some new techniques, whatever. So,
Yeah. And that's an interesting question. I just really like it in terms of like how the music is influenced by the material reality of the artist. And that is what happens, right? Like there's a way in which living in New York City, going to all these shows, meeting people, it just influences you. It's
yeah.
what you're around. So I think that is a given. Yeah. And it's really interesting to think about it post hoc and think
Yeah.
about it. Yeah.
Yeah. And learning from so many different people's like different perspectives and, building community with so many different people, it just, you sort of level up a little faster, I think, in a way.
Yeah.
You make more mistakes and you trip over more, you fall down more stairs more quickly, right? But if you're able to pick yourself back up, you just accelerate the growth, I think. It's kind of the cost benefit analysis of why artists moved to New York to begin with, right? It's like you can be seen here, but there's more noise here. But, it's a little harder to get through, but there's also the community. So,
Yeah, and when we were on tour just last week, it was interesting to ask people, like we were in Rhode Island, we were in Amherst, we were in Troy, to ask them how it was to be in that scene there. And we learned about different, just cultures. Yeah, and they were talking about how that influenced them exactly.
but also they if you go and play those towns, I mean, there's a whole chip on their shoulder. God bless people from Providence watching this. We'll be back for sure. But there's definitely a chip they have on their shoulder, deservedly, because most acts skip Providence and go right to Boston because it's 45 minutes away. And really, if you're reasonably thinking about a tour, you do have to pick one or the other. And so we chose Providence, and people were really thankful that we came there. And they're like, oh, people always skip over Providence. People don't think about like multiple people were thankful that we stopped in Providence. And I think just like the when we played in Troy and in Amherst, people get excited because, that's not, they don't get as much, and we take it for granted. How many great artists, how many great acts did you miss last week?
Right.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. And it's crazy because, we go through that too, where more people are going to Kansas City than St. Louis. So it's like there'll be some acts where it's like, oh, there'll be, like The Cure went to Kansas City or Chicago, and we're just like, oh, like
we're here.
exactly. And the last time they were here was '04, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was like, oh my gosh. But my brother got tickets to go see The Cure. I was like, but yeah, so much fun.
Yeah. They're skipping St. Louis.
Yep. That's how they
They
do
don't
it.
know the delicious food you've got there. And I know there's Schlafly's beer.
Yes. Yep. When are you guys coming to St. Louis? You guys got to show up here.
Yeah, I got some family in the Midwest. I have some
Oh, yeah.
family in St. Louis. So
Really?
Well,
go
maybe sooner
anytime.
than later.
Cool. Hey, I hope I get to hear from you guys. That would be awesome.
It would be great. It would be great.
Yeah.
What role does silence and space kind of play in your songwriting process?
More of it now, and I think there's like great moments that I'm really trying to learn from other artists and learn from other songwriters, where a little bit of silence can take that return to the chorus and feel like it's earned or like a relief. I think a song like Tempted, it gets kind of quieter and then we bring it back up. And I think like
Yeah.
that's like it's kind of a simple way if used correctly
Hmm.
to really increase the dynamism of the song, of the performance. Because I think like great performers, like, and I don't think I am one, but you see it a lot with like, I don't know, poets and some comedians where like they can take a silence
Mhm.
and extend it.
Oh yeah.
They haven't lost a single person. If not, they've drawn people in more.
Yeah.
So I think we want to play with that a little more. And I think it was harder before we had our in-ear monitors to know like, okay, let's because you got to when you come back, you got to be ready. You got to come back together or else it looks like a train wreck. So yeah, I think we'll be playing with more of that in some of our upcoming songs and performances.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really interesting question. Yeah. And Patrick pays a lot of attention to of course the set list, right? Like the order of songs and all of that in order to design the energy,
Hmm.
right? But in terms of like for me, I guess on the drum pad, I've just been experimenting a lot more with like stage presence and what to do. Like I'm more dramatic when it's the last one that I'm playing and I'm just like, oh, I like flip my hair. Or there's like a part where I'm not playing, but like recently on tour, I had my sticks and I was like playing on my sternum.
Yep.
Oh, really?
'Cause I don't know, just like playing, it was fun, like what do I do in this space?
With all these eyes on you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So if I'm having fun, I think that just makes it more engaging. Yeah.
And if people get bored with us, we have a video backing track for every song.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
like we've got a third member, a silent third member.
Yeah, it is.
Who
Yeah.
put all that together? Your guys' is like sort of media.
I have a background in film video. I was in Chicago because I did a master's there at the School of the Art Institute, and I've always been interested in film visual media.
Hmm.
My
Hmm.
dad is a huge nerd, as you got to meet.
Yeah.
Really has always like loved film, loved movies, loved technology, and so like that kind of inspired me
Yeah.
to put that together. And I always love when there's like a strong visual element for a performer, even if I don't know them. It's almost especially if I don't know them. Like, give me something else to hook into,
Hmm.
um, in between those songs that I can catch on to or don't connect
Yeah.
as well. Yeah, yeah. Anyway.
The power of symbolism,
Yes.
right? It's
Mhm.
symbols, right? And so it reaches another area of connection. Yeah.
Sometimes it's symbols, sometimes it's literal. Like Molotov is, it's parody, but it's kind of literal.
Yeah. I mean, it's like a music video. It's like overlapping music video.
Yeah.
I've always loved music videos. I think they're really powerful. I studied audiovisual stuff too. But Patrick makes all of it. And I just have my commentary. I'm like, oh, that's cool.
That's true.
Music videos.
Music videos, yeah. I mean, I grew up watching like VH1 and
Yeah.
just loving music videos. We've made a couple of music
Yeah, I was
videos.
gonna say, how did
Yeah,
you guys compile them, or how did that go about?
yeah,
Yeah, so for all of our music videos, it's just I try to keep it pretty simple. I think for our next album, we're gonna have more of a visual identity. We did some photo shoots and things, and we kind of have sort of considered motivation behind it. But our existing music videos, it's usually like a pretty simple idea
yeah,
and something to visually accompany it, that feels like it connects with the song, whatever. To kind of build a sort of a sort of I work in marketing, a brand story, so to speak, of like who we are, what we're about, like what our motivation is, what is our sort of like driving agenda? Because like we have this political stuff, we have this stuff where we're like talking about religion, we're basically like critiquing institutions, like who are we in this story?
right.
And I think we are serious, but we're also characters.
My favorite music video that we've made is the karaoke one.
Oh yeah, we made the In Excess one. We did like a fake karaoke night
That
like
was good.
video.
That was inventive.
was
I liked that. Yeah.
What period of your life do you often think of come back to? I mean, the best way I can kind of describe kind of an answer, an example is it's I'm weird thinking back like 20 years ago because I was just doing a review of Nine Inch Nails with Teeth, and now I'm coming back and going, oh my gosh, there was like a total learning period, transition period for me. Do you guys have that sort of moment where you're going back and you think about it often and kind of meditate on it?
It's interesting you bring up that album because I thought All the Love in the World was one of the great, and I still do. I think it's like a fantastic, beautiful song, and it's kind of like a high watermark for like, can I ever hit that, you know? And then a lot of the other songs I didn't really connect with as well but I do more now. I understand that like the production makes more sense in context and stuff. Um, I worked at a record store from 16 to 20 approximately. And during this period, I had a boss who was like a former, like would be like the age that I am now. And he was like a former goth, like whatever. And he was like, "Oh, you're into all this like punk rock stuff. You'd probably like The Cure. Oh, you'd probably like this band Depeche
Oh,
Mode. Oh, you seem you'd really like Sisters of Mercy, who are like probably like my favorite like act of all time." Um, and yeah, it's like I got this kind of feedback cycle while also having access to like so much. So I could like, I worked I was going to school at the time, so I worked the like evening shift, the closing shift for like 4 or 5 hours. No one's coming in except for like, teenage kids buying, Britney Spears or NSYNC or Linkin Park or whatever.
Yeah, been there.
And I got to really like the dig through the collection of like what we had and sort of reconnect, recontextualize stuff, go off the beaten path. I could order stuff that we didn't get in the store and like not have to buy it and just listen to it at work. And um I found that period to be really like ripe and robust for me. And I think there was like a really robust period of like indie experimental music from like the late 90s and early 2000s. You had things that I still love, like the Beta Band. You had Atari Teenage Riot. You had people really like playing with a lot of stuff. A good friend of mine, and we met some of his mutual friends on tour, lived at Fort Thunder in outside of RISD, where all those artists, Dirty Projectors lived there, Lightning Bolt lived there, Paper Rad people all lived there. And I think like that period, I was just lucky to have been like a sponge and have known some people connected to it and be able to like still be learning, be like revisit it now and learn, revisit it and learn. So I think it is like sort of about the 20-year cycle, but I also think like I'm trying to be very and making trying to I'm hoping we're both very plugged into what's happening now. And so the New Goth New York thing is like not to like keep like boosting it, but it's also I think a way of talking about like the fact that like I think people can I think as we age we can kind of think like oh it was better then or it's not there's not as much happening now and not to get in too far of a tangent but I think like with the end of record labels with the end of A&R you don't have people who are paid to billow the fire to like we need something new we need something new Jimi Hendrix Led Zeppelin we need something new too sounds too much like the last album new and so every year they're releasing albums that are like changing the game Bob Dylan changing the game with every album and it's because someone's billowing the fire. I mean, the Beatles' career is like 8 years, and so much happens over that period.
So much years.
Yeah, and so my thinking now is like there's actually stuff happening, and if we as a community can collectively like billow the fire, we can appreciate and respect those pastimes, but hopefully find something in the now. You know what I mean?
yeah.
I don't know. It was long-winded.
Yeah. If I were to add anything, I worked briefly at my college's radio station as a DJ, radio DJ, and that was partially influenced by my dad because he also worked in radio stations and recording studios and all of that. But it was a mixture of playing stuff people knew, right?
Yeah.
But also new stuff like, hey, here's local stuff, here's this band that's up and coming, and I would have to announce it and figure out how to mix them together. And that was just a lovely homage to what has been and what is now, and kind of balancing those two things.
Yeah.
Awesome. What has caught your ear lately? I mean, whether it's music, movies, books, TV shows, anything that's caught your ear that's could be generating some inspiration.
I'm looking forward to seeing John Carpenter's coming to perform in October. He's going on like a tour. He's gonna be here in the city. And I just think that's so fucking cool. To be in your 70s and being like, I have this, like to have this thread of electronic music that people reference 40, almost 50 years later, and like being like, and I'm still trying and I'm still innovating. And I think that's really cool. I think again, the artists on the New Goth New York thing are very cool. Um, I think lately, I love if you're in and around the New York area, every Sunday and Saturday afternoon, there's a free it's like a one or two drink minimum or something, but it's a free Sunday and Saturday jam session they do at Smalls, the jazz club there. Fantastic. The shows that are being put on in the city, Syntheside, fantastic. I think there are these really cool artists coming through that are just really awesome. I really am excited about bands like I already mentioned, Lathe of Heaven. They're so cool. They've got this like post-punk meets like sort of crass, like screaming the lyrics at you, but they've got this political side, this poetic side, but they're a little gothy. Really, really great act that I love.
Yeah, and a lot of the acts that Patrick is into, he sends to me. So by proxy or literally, I also become interested in them. And then, also just more recently, just briefly, one of the acts that we played with on tour, Snow Beasts.
Oh, Snow Beasts. Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Wow,
they were
wow, wow,
great.
wow.
And they're an
Yeah, out of Providence, but we brought them to Massachusetts.
yeah, exactly. And they're a couple, adult couple. They're probably in their 50s.
Hmm.
And they're just playing dark wave synth stuff with these ambient screamy
It's
vocals.
kind of like the knife. It's very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And they're just a couple that does that as creativity. And I really admired that. Yeah.
Yeah, we also played that show with Burial Woods, who writes fantastic songs
Yeah.
about like the songs are about like this sort of like political moment, gender and identity issues. But the songs are so catchy. Burial Woods, so Burial
Yeah,
Woods.
and pretty explicit, right?
Yeah.
Like talking about this
Oh
is
yeah.
about, this is what it's
Hmm.
about. And it has to do with like the socio-political moments, like, debates around gender, politics, like all of this. So that was really nice too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, two more questions and then I'll let you guys go. Do you feel your music reflects who you are now or who you are becoming?
You could start with this. You could start.
Um,
It's a
I'm
it's a deep question. I'm sorry. So
No, it's a good one though.
no, I'm just gonna get super psychoanalytic with you. It's
okay,
like,
please do. I'm all about it.
here's my PhD, like there you go, on a plate.
Put it on the table. Let's hear it.
It's like everything that you do influences you, right? And so because this music, like I don't come from like explicitly like thinking of myself as like I'm into darkwave, I'm into goth. Like that isn't something I've always just been into everything, kind of diffuse interests with again those hyperfixations like Bob Dylan, like certain bands, like certain artists. But like Patrick has really motivated me to again like deep dive into this history, like where does this come from? And so you know we created this act together and it is me up there using my voice, like learning earnestly how to play this instrument. But in some ways, like the persona and the sound of the music, that is something that I also have to embody that I haven't as explicitly embodied before. Because again, it's lo-fi garage band, sleepy, dreamy Sarah on her guitar. So it's really fun to channel this new aspect. And we've talked a lot about how it's felt to like be, as part of this act and kind of exploring it. So it's a little bit of um it comes from me, right? It's a side of me that now I have more access to. So it's both. I would say both. Yeah.
Yeah. I think for me it's a becoming because uh I often revisit a song and I write lyrically, like I try not to be overly literal and really let the sort of like sound and the phonemes sort of guide. And hopefully there's a general perspective we're aiming towards. But I think often I'll hear a song later and be like, oh, that emotion resonates with me now. So I think there's like there's probably psychologically, there's like an aspirational element to the writing where like I aspire to be this person, I aspire to feel this, or I have felt like this, and so therefore want to react like that, kind of. So I think I try to create something that's hopefully engaging as a listen, and that I can learn from later, whether that's conscious or not.
Yeah, and I just want to add something real quick. Like sometimes when I'm learning the songs, it's a little bit, I'm like, oh, okay, I have to learn how to play this, like kind of more of the anxiety mind where it's like, how do I learn this? But then I'll be listening, to the music and
Mhm.
I'll hear Patrick's lyrics differently. Or
Mhm.
I'll be like, Patrick, like, oh my God, it's really just catching my attention potentially and interpretation of this now. And so I'm kind of just resonating with what you just
Yeah,
said.
you'll
Yeah,
sort of reinterpret the lyrics a little bit
exactly. With
as
more
yeah.
headspace. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Cool,
Yeah.
awesome. Thank you guys so much. I always end it with one last question. What is your advice for anybody who looks up to your music, just looking to fill the time with listening to this podcast or whatever? What words of advice do you have for anybody just coming into this thing, or even just music or art in general?
Don't be afraid. Reach out to people, build a community. Uh, Other people are just as worried about themselves as you are about yourself, and like 9 times out of 10 aren't judging you. So if you want to do something, do it. If you want to reach out to somebody, just reach out to them. Um, because for a couple of reasons. One, it doesn't help you to live with regrets. And secondly, we only get through this political moment together, I guess.
Yeah. If I'll say anything, like this project for me is nothing I necessarily plan to do, but I'm really happy that I opened myself up to learning something new and developing, learning this drum pad hasn't been easy, and and just like, all of this. And so it's kind of like working with people who you love deeply, and by love it's want to see develop, to a higher version of themselves and access more parts of their identity and be able to feel more integrated. So I really appreciate working on this project with
Oh,
you,
okay. I appreciate it.
and it's been a great lesson in friendship and teamwork,
Mhm.
and of the self, like using oneself as
Yeah.
an instrument, bettering the
And
self.
it's been a
Yeah.
beautiful thing to connect with other artists
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
to, because I think there's things that feel isolating. There are things that suck, like trying to book shows, et cetera, trying to get your band heard. But just connecting in that moment at a show, online with somebody, connecting with,
Yeah.
someone like yourself, Justin, and seeing that reach out and you connect with all these people and you give artists another opportunity to share who they are. These are all like really important, beautiful things, and I think they contribute to a bigger conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate your time. Thank you for being part of my podcast. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you
Anytime.
so much.